So we're back with more Emerald Dream cards to review. Today it's all about Hunter, and we got a new legendary here, Brol Bearmantle. This is a character I have loved ever since the World of Warcraft comic book came out, man. That was a big hit for me. This is a 5-mana 3/5. After you cast a spell, summon a random animal companion. And of course, by now I think we all know the animal companions. We got Huffer with Charge, we got Misha with Taunt, and we got Leok with some attack buffs. And you're going to get one of those at random after you cast a spell with Brol on board. And, you know, obviously really cheap spells are going to be your goal here. If you have a coin in hand still, for instance, absolute home run, right? Turning a coin into a Huffer. And in fact, Hunter, as you might recall, has more ways to get coins still in standard format with Cash Cow. Whenever this takes damage, get a coin. This could be a way to farm up, I mean, gosh, up to 7 coins, more realistically, probably, you know, 1, 2, or maybe even 3 coins. We also do have some technical 0-mana spells available to Hunter still as well, like alien encounters can get discounted down to 0. Do keep in mind, you know, with this one, there's pretty quick diminishing returns on these because they are also summoning up stuff which takes up board space. You only have 7 spots. So if you played like 2 of these, you'd have 4 of the aliens on board. Brol is another one, and you'd only have, you know, the two animal companions. So you can't like go crazy hard with these, but that would be a monster turn 5 if you somehow got all of that done on turn 5. You'd have the 3/5 Brol, 4 2/5 taunts, and a couple animal companions, maybe ideally there even like Leox to buff up all the dudes. So possibility. We've also still got some ways to make bananas that are going to be in standard with this card. I actually completely forgot this card existed. Monkey Business can add a bunch of bananas to hand, a little more expensive at 1, but might still be worth it. And then, you know, there are just like other cheap Hunter spells, you know, various sorts: Fetch, Arcane Shot, Tracking, you know, whatever. There's a new one we're going to talk about here at 2 mana that might be decent. So some options. Now, I will say, even at 1 mana though, for these spells, yes, it is efficient from like a I'm turning my spell into a bonus standpoint. Like that's, you know, just playing a spell, I'm getting the spell's value regardless, and now I'm getting a Huffer. Amazing, right? But it does start to push itself later and later into the game, right? Because if you want to get, you know, a good return on your Brol, you might want like 3 animal companions. You're talking about now an 8 mana turn if you're using 1 mana spells, and if you're weaving a 2 mana spell into the mix, right? You're pushing things back even further or getting yourself fewer animal companions. So there is this kind of tenuous balance about like how quickly does this need to come down to make the impact that I want it to make versus like how, you know, how expensive are all these spells. 0 cost spells pop off on turn 5. That's amazing if that happens. I don't think that's going to be that easy to do though, particularly like Cash Cow, you know, already is on turn 5. That pushes this to turn 6 or later. Now, of course, if you get a bunch of Huffers, you may not care anyway, because if you just get like 4 Huffers, it might just be lethal, right? And it's fine if that's turn 7 or 8 or whatever. I'm just trying to get Huffers to win the game, but you're not always going to get a board full of Huffers. Your opponents will, but you're often going to get boards full of Mishas. And, you know, that's less exciting for me. An 8 or 9 mana turn where I get a Brol and like 3 Mishas, it's okay. But a lot of cards do that already. And how much of those spells really going to incrementally improve any given turn at like, you know, 7, 8, 9 mana, whatever it might be? That's a little bit harder of a question for me to answer. So I do think this is actually going to need additional support than it gets right now, like more ways to make 0 mana spells reliably. Good news is, you know, we have 5 more full sets coming out before this guy rotates. So I do actually think this is a little soft right now. Like, I think maybe not enough in the pool for this to work well. Like, I want this going off sooner than it's able to right now. But down the road, you know, if Hunter gets any good 0 cost spells or ways to turn things to 0 cost spells, even if they're little garbage cards that don't do anything, that unlocks a new speed basically for Brol Bearmantle, which I think will help. So I think there is some latent potential in this card. It's just not going to be seen for at least a little while, potentially never if it doesn't get that additional support. But I don't know that this gets there right now, even in a potentially weaker meta that exists. I also think it's kind of weird that Brol Bearmantle is in Hunter, but I guess there's just so much Druid stuff in Emerald Dream that it just has to spill over into other classes, even though he is very clearly and very iconically a Druid. All right, so moving on to that 2-cost spell we teased, Amphibian's Spirit. This is 2 mana nature. Give a minion +2/+2 and Death Rattle. Give a friendly minion +2/+2 and this Death Rattle. And Battlegrounds players are having nightmares right now of like leapfrogger shenanigans where this is just like stacking up over and over and over again and repeating multiple times. And there are definitely like crazy possibilities with this kind of card when you like stack it up and then trigger the death rattles over and over again. You can get these like giant stacks where like 2 or 3 of these are on a single minion proccing all at once, and things can go absolutely crazy. Now, I think that's going to be a lot harder to do reliably in standard. I think you should probably look at this more honestly, like, okay, this is a 2/2 that bounces over and I get another 2/2 out of it. And, you know, maybe I have like a board of 1/1 rush minions and I give the Amphibian Spirit to one of the 1/1 rushes. I trade it in. Now it trades up as a 3/3. It dies and I can move it over the next one and trade it again, right? And you can kind of multiply the value of this across a board with rush. Also, you know, theoretically, if you just play down a board of stuff, you know, put this on, say, like a taunt minion, for instance, put it on your Misha, and the opponent has to run through that Misha first, and then this rolls off on something else, makes it a little bit harder to kill. Now, if you use it that way, kind of passively, defensively, of course, the opponent will have the luxury of dictating what dies last, and they can just kill this card last, minus the taunt scenario we talk about there, unless they, of course, have like a spell even to work around stuff. You know, it's not going to work as often or as well when you're not controlling the results, but there will probably still be some moments where you control the results. I'll also argue that, you know, maybe it doesn't have to be crazy. A 2/2 buff for 2 isn't exciting, but it's also not terrible. Like if this just goes down once and then it falls off after that, you might still be happy, you know? You might just be happy to push an extra 2 damage face or whatever, or make your thing on board a little bit sturdier so that it doesn't die to a trade. And then, you know, when you are ahead and when you are able to dictate how you use this, how this trades in, etc., you might be able to duplicate its value at least 1 or 2 extra times, which makes this, you know, 6/6 buff for 2, which is really, really good. So all in all, I think not crazy scary as some people might expect, but still a solid workhorse, work frog kind of card. Moving on here to the Spirit Bond. This is a 3 mana nature spell. It deals 3 damage to a minion, and if it kills it, you summon a 3/2 wolf with rush. So theoretically here, a nice little way to clean up a couple 3/3s on your opponent's board, an early game card. Now, I will say, you know, this is not like an outstanding output for a 3-cost cards these days. You know, like, yeah, a little better than Flanking Strike of old, but that's a very, very, very old card. This falls more in line with kind of like Plague Strike we saw in Death Knight, which was actually a very good card, but this is arguably a little worse than that, somewhere in the middle. But, you know, it's okay. I think it's a solid output for a 3-cost card. Or I think this might become important, though, is that, we saw this Imbue package for Hunter earlier. You'll remember the Umbra Claw and the Blessing of the Wolf hero power, right? Like, you're going to want to have some spells in your deck, I think, in order to kind of isolate the beasts in hand that are going to get the discount and the buff from Blessing of the Wolf. In other words, you don't want Blessing of the Wolf getting, you know, spread across 6 beasts in hand. You might want to isolate it to some key targets like Goldrin we saw. You know, Goldrin was the legendary for Hunter. I guess I'll pull that up real quick too, just as a reminder. You know, like, you may want to hit your Goldrin as much as possible to discount this Goldrin to create a crazy play with this, you know, this text where you're dealing double damage. So it might be important to run a pretty solid mix of spells alongside, you know, a handful of really key beasts. So you might have to run cards like this. And I think this is okay enough to make that feel fine. I don't think this is like a standout card. I don't think you're super pumped to have this necessarily. But it's just a piece of the puzzle. I think this is a lot better than the 4-cost card we saw for Hunter. It's good to review these anyway, I guess, since this is part of the set. You know, I wasn't as excited about Grace of the Great Wolf. It again looked kind of weak for 4, but Spirit Bond feels more on rate for a 3-cost card. I think I feel fine playing that. Maybe Grace of the Great Wolf gets played for the same reason, but it's easier to cut than this one. I think this card will definitely get played in some Hunter decks, just because, number one, we need cards right now in a small rotation set, and we need maybe spells to keep our minion pool a little more pure. Though I will say, because that hero power hits beasts specifically, you don't actually have to run spells you can still just run non-beast cards for your Imbue hero power, right? So, or non-beast minions, excuse me. So that might actually be a way to avoid this once more, is like, well, I'll just run more minions that aren't beasts, so I still isolate the beast in hand. So it just depends, right? Is this spell going to be better than a random like 3-drop neutral minion or non-beast minion even in the hunter set? Maybe sometimes. So solid card is what I'm getting at here, just nothing amazing. All right, so moving on to this Imbue package, we have basically the perfect Imbue card. This is Exotic Houndmaster, 2-mana 2/2, Battlecry, draw a beast, and imbue your hero power, which this does everything you want. An early body for some tempo. Battlecry drawing you a beast, tutored specific card draw that synergizes with the hero power. I mean, honestly, a 2-mana 2/2 Battlecry draw a beast probably gets played sometimes on its own, and then you're also juicing up your hero power. So this is great to play on turn 2 to get the Imbue online as early as possible, start filling your hand up. And it's great to play late because it's still drawing you stuff. So if you want to play this on turn 8 or 9, you don't feel bad at all. You're still happy that you get to improve your hero power and draw a thing. That makes this like the perfect card. And I think Imbue Hunter looks, like a pretty reasonably good package as well. So I think this inevitably, of course, is the best, most favorite card to see when you're playing Imbue Hunter. And that looks like a solid enough deck. So this is a definite recipe for a lot of play. All right, so moving on to some cards here that might pay off the Imbue package. This is the Verdant Dreamsaber, a 5-mana 4/7 beast. Battlecry, if this costs 3 or less, attack 2 random enemy minions. And I mean, we've talked about it a few times, but just a reminder here, you have a random beast in your hand, +1 attack, and it costs 1 less. So as soon as this gets upgraded once, because remember the first Imbue gives you the hero power, the second one upgrades it. As soon as that happens once, this guy is down to 3 or less, 2-mana discount, and it's a pretty good card, a 3-mana 4/7 that attacks 2 random enemy minions, right? Gives you a little bit of stabilization. Oh, also it'll be a 5/7, I guess, too, because it'll get buffed by as much. No, 6/7. God, I can count. It'll be a 6/7, so it's like an ogre that gets to attack immediately. That's perfect, right? Like just a cheap way to recover some of the tempo you've probably sacrificed while imbuing. Probably still sometimes leaves behind a threat on board as well that the opponent has to deal with. I mean, this looks like a great way to pay off all these discounts on top of like regular beasts being good as well. Like you're not mad about just playing regular beasts that are discounted, but these have these specific payoffs because we have actually one more. The mythical Rune Bear. This is a 4-mana 3/4 with taunt and battle cry. If this has 4 or more attack, summon a copy of this, which again, if this gets hit even just once now by your Imbue, that's going to have 4 or more attack thanks to that attack buff, and you're going to get 2 4/4s with taunt for 3 mana because it'll be discounted once as well. Off that Imbue could obviously get down to like 0 and be like a 10/4 that summons another 10/4 and stuff too. The health not scaling on the taunt feels a little bit sad there, but still, like, that could be a scary, threatening board for your opponent to deal with. I think perhaps more importantly, this is one you're just happy to hit like once and play as soon as possible, so that you get some bodies down to kind of stabilize a little bit while doing other Imbue stuff. I will acknowledge that's not, of course, the only way to hit this card. There's hand buffs as well that might enable that, and even Leok should work with this too. We saw maybe you summon Leok off your Brawl, and this should count that aura as soon as it's on board for the battle cry. We've seen that, I think, work 100 times before. So a handful of different ways to activate this one, but I think probably again kind of designed for Imbue and often going to be like a 0-mana 7/4 plus that just gives you a couple scary, threatening attack values on board alongside that little bit of speed bump defense, which again looks pretty solid to me. I think Imbue Hunter looks good enough. All right, so moving on here to the Shepherd's Crook. This is a 3-mana 3/2 weapon with after your hero attacks, summon a 3/3 sheep that's dormant for 2 turns. Kind of another wild seed card almost here, summoning some dormant stuff, but this time it's just a 3/3. No like taunt or attack value or rush or anything that makes the sheep interesting. It's just a 3/3 body, and it's on this 3/2 weapon, which you know, 3-mana 3/2 weapons are okay, but definitely don't feel great these days. And these sheep are gonna take forever to actually interact with anything because they don't in any way give you immediacy. Even like the dread seeds we saw from Demon Hunter, right? Like one had attack, one had taunt, so they gave you some ways to you know, pay off the wait. Even the 1-drop dread seed came down faster than 2 turns, right? So the sheep are just really delayed, and they take even longer to attack after that fact. Or boy, I don't love that. It's just like a bad weapon with some really, really delayed payoffs that suck. They're not even good payoffs. They're just gonna get like swept up in an AoE or something. You won't even know they existed. You're pretty much playing a 3-mana 3/2 that maybe just occupies too many board spaces. So at the end of the day, yeah, I really don't think this card looks very good at all. All right, so all that said, let's go ahead and rate these cards from 1 to 5 stars. Roll Bearmantle is a 4-star card. Amphibian's Spirit is a 3-star card. Spirit Bond is a 3-star card. Exotic Houndmaster is a 5-star card. Verdant Dream Saber is a 4-star card. Mythical Runebear is a 3-star card. Shepherd's Crook is a 2-star card. And yeah, there you go. There is the Hunter stuff. I think some interesting things to play around with here. I think the Imbue package looks pretty solid. I think a lot of these cards will get played. Some of them, like, you know, might fall away a little bit, but I think everything has a pretty good chance at some level in this smaller set rotation. Brawl, though, I don't actually know if we're going to see right away. This one you might have to save for later, but still a card that can definitely pack a punch with the right tools down the road. That said, share your thoughts on all these cards down below. Thanks much, as always, for watching, and until next time,